to another edition of Sales TV, a virtual lounge for salespeople to spend time with their peers. And today we have a special treat for you. But before I introduce him, let's do some quick intros, starting with myself. So I'm Alex, fondly known as the Bearded Sales Guy. I'll be your co-host, kicking things off today. And I'm joined by, should we go anti-clockwise? Adam?
He's got to work that out now.
Hi, everybody. I'm Adam Gray. I'm co-founder of DLA Ignite.
I'm Tim Hughes. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite, and famous for writing the book Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers.
Andy Huff, Cranfield lecturer and founder of the ISP, and I had no idea that we were doing this entire episode in the genre of Jackanory, Alex, based on your...
We're trying something different. We're keeping it real.
Viewers, and we're going to go to the square window today.
Adam, you've got one collar up and one collar down. I don't know.
So I have. It's a new look that I'm trying to put out in the public domain. Is that better?
Yeah.
That's do I do it at the bottom as well?
Did you not get the memo? Top button up.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. So our guest today has won awards. He's written books, multiple books, in fact, on sales training. My favorite book being The Jelly Effect, but I think we're going to hear more about that later. One of his most prestigious accolades is winning Sales Trainer of the Year. So today we're going to hear from him what the afters actually means and how you can achieve a 94% proposal success rate. So without further ado, let's bring on our guest. Hey, Andy.
Morning, Andy.
Morning. Thank you for the applause. There won't be any at the end, so I enjoyed that.
So Andy and I go back many years. So Andy, I was kind of, lucky enough to be trained by Andy many years ago when I had, no grey in my beard, not less grey. And there was one thing that I remember that stuck with me throughout that time, and it was the story you told us all about your blind mum. So do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. So my job now is to help salespeople sell more. And when you're a salesperson trying to sell more, you have to really be able to understand the world from the customer's point of view. And I know we all think we can, but do we actually? Well, my background, my mum, as you say, Alex, is blind. So when I was a little child learning how to speak, the person who taught me to speak can't see. So as I was learning how to speak, literally at the age of 2, I was already beginning to say, how do I describe this to your mum so you see the world the way I do? And so I've got this sort of innate interest for, hopefully skills in, and certainly passion for helping other people who don't see the world the way we do to be able to join in, if you like. And when you sell, customers don't see why they should see you. They don't see why they should give you money. They're blind to your brilliance. And I guess that's where I really started focusing on communication from the other person's point of view. And here we are now.
So that's brilliant. Do you want to also give us a bit of a background and what it is you do today and a bit more about the jelly effect?
Yeah, sure. So extremely quickly, as I say, I help companies to sell more, usually work with the larger companies, but anyone who wants to sell more, I'm very happy to help them. As you say, I was voted Great Britain Sales Trainer of the Year. My 3 books on sales have all been bestsellers, which is very nice. I was a bit bitter with the first one, The Jelly Effect, which in some ways is my favourite. I'm not supposed to have favourites, but it was my first one and I love it. But when I launched it, it would have got to number 1 on Amazon, apart from the fact it got beaten by the Harry Potter, the final book. So we got this brilliant screenshot, the kids' version of the final book of Harry Potter, the adult version, and then the jelly effect. So it's a brilliant screenshot. And when you look at that, people think that, oh my word, you were just behind, and go, yeah, about 80 billion copies behind. So what is it they say? We were the best place of the losers that day. So we've done that. Worked in about 50 countries with some very big, prestigious companies. Very proud of that. But ultimately, it's all about helping salespeople to sell more and doing that by helping them position what they say so blind people can understand it, really.
Yeah. And And how, like, helping salespeople to sell more, it's easy to say, but I feel it's very difficult to achieve. How do you do that? What are the best ways for you to do that?
There are three things that people need. Number one is they need the skills to do so. So there are certain things that people don't know they don't know. So you mentioned afters before. We can talk about that later if you want. So certain things that people don't know they don't know, we need to give them those skills. That's the first thing. The second thing they need to do is they need to sort their diary out, because what we do is we're all creatures of whatever the Outlook calendar tells us to do. And very often what people do is they get to the end of the week and go, oh, no, I was supposed to ask for referrals, but I ran out of time. I didn't get time. I meant to, I didn't have time. And I always say, well, did it put it in your calendar? And they go, no, I didn't. Well, you're never going to find time to do stuff if you don't put things in the calendar. So I know it's boring, but you have to get your calendar right. So, for example, you need to prepare for meetings, but if you don't schedule preparation time in your calendar, miraculously, you don't have any time. So you need skills, you need to sort your calendar out. And the third thing you need is you need a sense of accountability. You need somebody else checking up on you. So where I'm from in Liverpool in the UK, I sometimes like to use the phrase, you need to feel you're being watched. You've got to feel you're being watched, because if you teach new skills and you put something in the calendar, if at the end of the week, you just press dismiss when the reminder came up, if no one checks up on you, then no one knows you haven't done it. And so all those three are essential if you want to increase your sales. So when I work with sales teams, the first thing I do is I say to the leaders, right, I need to speak to you because you're going to be the ones who make or break this when I've gone. You'll be the people holding them to account. So let me show you how to hold them to account. Let me show you how to role model this stuff. Let me show you how to step in when people slip back, blah, blah, blah. And that sorts out the third one. The second one, the sorting out the calendar, I then say to the leaders, we will fail if you don't change your calendar. So let me tell you some changes I would expect to see in your team. And then finally, when you do the skills thing, that's the thing that people usually focus on. It's the only thing they focus on, Alex. But actually, that's the thing we look at third. Okay, so you need to get the mechanisms in place to change people's habits. And I mean, you still remember afters, and I taught it, like 20 years ago. So if you do it properly, it lasts.
Yeah. I have to remind myself about it because it is so good. It's just it's those simple, basic things that you can often forget. So that third one, feel like you're being watched. That's essentially holding yourself to account, which is one thing that salespeople often don't do. What tips? I mean, other than telling them you need to feel like you're being watched, what other tips have you got for?
Right, so there's many things. So let's use a simple example of asking for referrals. Like, all salespeople know referrals are good, and all salespeople know they don't get as many referrals as they want. And when you think about it, all salespeople therefore know they should ask for more referrals than they do, because you're not going to get them by magic unless you're lucky. You have to preempt them. So what we then need to do is we then need a mechanism that ensures people know that someone's going to watch them if they don't ask for referrals. So one thing you could do, Alex, is you could have, every time you have a one-to-one with your manager, at some point, your manager will always say, how many referrals have you asked for since last week? If you have a team meeting where you do that boring deal review thing, which everyone just thinks, just kill me now. I know it's important, but my word is boring. Well, in that meeting, actually have an agenda item called referrals you've asked for since we last got together. And so it is inevitable it's going to be talked about. And the simple rule for changing behaviors as a leader is you work out something you want to check up on people and you ask them the same question all the time. So if I'm a leader of U5, which clearly is never going to happen, it'd be the other way around, and we wanted to get more referrals, I would ask you the same question every time I saw you. How many referrals have you asked for since I last saw you? It will be on the agenda. It will be on the one-to-one agenda. I will talk to you when I saw you in the verbal corridor about it. And it will be a bit like the first time you might not have done it. And that's okay. I'll give you a first chance. Second time you go, oh yeah, I meant to, but something got in the way. I say, okay, well, fair enough. I'm going to ask you again tomorrow. You might want to be ready. And there comes a point where the salesperson begins to feel stupid because every time the manager asks them, they go, no, still not done it. So it's that almost tedious, unrelenting checking up. And all you need to do is just work out the behavior you want, asking for referrals. And the question is not, have you asked for any yes or no? Because they can say no. The question is, how many have you asked for?
Yeah.
Yep.
Simple yet brilliant.
That's not. I was once described by one of my customers like simple but brilliant. It wasn't quite that. They said, I'm never sure with you if you're a simpleton or a genius. And I thought that was quite nice because I thought at least you think there's some doubt.
Oh, brilliant. Now, I'm not going to be the only one peppering you with questions, Andy.
No, I think we were all just listening to that going, well, duh, yeah. I mean, obviously that bears absolutely no resemblance to whether or not we do it, but it is the simplicity of this kind of way of thinking that makes it effective, but B, accessible. Because you know, one of the things is I asked Alex the other day, how many £1 million deals have you closed this week? And you know, actually, that's a more complex thing that requires many more. And I know it's not a behaviour; it's an outcome, but it requires a huge amount of other stuff going on. Whereas something really simple, you know, how many connection requests have you sent this week? Well, I've no chance to do. Okay, how many connection requests? And actually, that's a really simple thing. And success, in my limited experience of success, is based on
very limited.
Thank you. I could sense that was coming. It is based on the repetition of simple actions, and the difference that we see between success and failure with, you know, our methodology and other people in this space is that we win because we're very good at executing on this stuff. And eventually, you know, we see competitors getting a bigger and bigger and bigger share of voice, and then all of a sudden they disappear again because they're pushing towards that objective, and then it just kind of all falls away. And the success of doing this, you know, just repeating it over and over and over and over and over again, it builds that basis, doesn't it? Like getting fit or running a marathon or whatever it may be.
Yeah. So there's a comment there from LinkedIn user. Just so you know, the reason why you're coming up with LinkedIn user is because you haven't. There's certain conditions you have to set in LinkedIn to say that you're willing to share your data. So the comment there from LinkedIn is it's always the simple stuff. Everyone wants a silver bullet for some reason, but actually is very, very simple in terms of. So LinkedIn user, it's always the simple. Come on, producer, put the right comment out. It's always anyway. LinkedIn user says it's always the simple stuff. Everyone wants the silver bullet for some reason, and it is. Well, everybody's looking for a silver bullet, but actually, what you do is just relentlessly, basically, ask the same question, and at some point they'll realize that you're going to ask it, and they'll go away and make sure they find it.
That's right. So as a sales manager, relentlessly ask the same question. As the salesperson, you work out what are the key. Let's put a small number so it's not scary, Tim. Let's say 3, 4, 5 things you need to do relentlessly to be successful. Number 1, probably ask for referrals. Number 2 is to follow up quickly. So if you have like in sales, delay is never good, right? So if you have a good meeting with someone, don't wait till a week on Tuesday to reply. You follow up on that day. So therefore, you work out all the things you need to relentlessly do, and they might be trivial. It feels like following up and asking for referrals and all that stuff, and you put them all in your calendar. So in my calendar, I've got like Tuesday morning, ask for referrals. Wednesday morning, chase previous buyers. What I mean by that is a buyer who used to buy from me, but they've now moved employer. And obviously, when someone moves employer, they're looking to hit the ground running and make new sales. So I can say, how's the new job going? Do you want me to give you a quick head start? So I've got ask for referrals, chase previous buyers, follow up. So at the end of each day in the calendar, I've got follow up all today's sales meetings, and I've got time scheduled for that. And I know it's boring, but it means without fail, I follow up instantly. I ask for referrals every week. I follow the switches every week. And so if anyone listening to this wanted to take a very simple win from this, by all means, find a silver bullet if you want. Clue, spoiler alert, there aren't any. But just work out the 3, 4, 5 things you need to relentlessly do, put it in your calendar and ask someone to check up on you, and you'll be more successful.
So LinkedIn user also then asks the question, what's the best way to ask for a referral that gives the best chance of getting multiple?
Okay, beautiful. So various ways to do it. Simplest way I find, it depends how much they love you, Tim. So if someone loves you, you say the word favor. So obviously, Tim, you love me and I love you. So I might say to you, Tim, can I ask a favor? And you say, yes, of course, Andy. I say, I really love an introduction to your friend, Alex. Don't know him. Would you mind introducing me? Dead easy, right? Can I ask a favor? Now, if we say have a look at Adam, we get on fine, but there's no love there. All right, he quite likes me, but there's no love, so I wouldn't use the word.
Actually, there is this way.
Oh, is it? Oh, sorry, it's just one way. Is it? Okay, that's right. No, I should have given you feedback's a gift, though, right? So what happens is with Adam, I can't quite use the word favour because there's only one way love. So instead, I use the word advice, and I say, Adam, can I ask your advice about something? And he says, what is it? And I say, well, you know your friend Alex Abbott. I really want to speak to him, and I don't know him, and I don't want to cold call him. How would you advise I approach him? And almost always, Adam will say, well, I'll just introduce you. All right, so you get the referral anyway. And even if Adam says send him an email, I'll say, great, I'll send him an email. Do you mind if I use your name? And he'll say, yeah, that's fine. So now I email Alex, and the subject line, Tim, the subject line is Alex, your friend Adam suggested I email you, because he did. Well, Alex is now going to open the email, whereas if I call the email meeting request, I've got like absolutely no chance at all. So there's loads of words. Let's break it down into small words. If they love you, say the word favour. And if they don't love you, say the word advice. And that
right. Can I pick up on something you said there? You said, if I had the headline meeting request, there's absolutely no chance somebody will open that email and accept that meeting request.
Mm-hmm.
That seems blindingly obvious to me, and to you, and to everybody in the audience.
No, not for me. I always open them because I assume someone will meeting. That's why people put meeting requests on, because it's in the training that people give to get more open rates on emails.
Exactly.
I'm not actually sure whether he's being sincere or
No, I know.
You get them all the time.
Yeah. So given that it's so blindingly obvious, why do so many salespeople still have that approach? You know, they themselves don't open those emails
because they've been trained by someone to do it. It's in the this is how you send loads of emails training.
Yeah, there's two things, Tim. Certainly, it's how they're trained. But the other thing, and this is really important, and again, if anyone wants to write any words down, this is a good word to write down, people listening, is the word habit. We're all creatures of habit. Yeah. So you send out 10 emails, all called meeting requests. You don't get any replies. You don't think, oh, I better change the title. You just send out another 10. I have had salespeople, if you want something blindingly obvious, Adam, here we go. I've had salespeople who say, oh, I managed to send that proposal out, and said, oh, well done. You wrote that fast. You go, yeah, we did it in 6 minutes. I go, that's amazing. How did you write something in 6 minutes? I say, well, we got last week's proposal. We sent to someone else, and we changed the logo, and then we just sent it. I said, what an amazing idea. And that thing you copied from last week, did that win the sale? And they go, no, it didn't. I said, why are you copying something that's lost? You know, it's just, with respect, that's stupid. Like, every time I do this, it really hurts. What advice would you give me? Stop doing that, you idiot. But that's the thing, Adam, we're just creatures of habit. Why would anybody copy something from last week that lost? Why would anyone turn up to a weekly update meeting that they knew was going to be boring? You would do something to change it. But we're just creatures of habit. I mean, I've had people say, Andy, I've written 9 emails to this prospect. They haven't replied to me. What do you think I should write in the 10th? And I go, stop emailing them. Do something else. So this is a long ranty answer, Adam. The word is habit.
Do we need to get you a blood pressure kit up there, Andy?
Yeah, I had a full head of hair this morning. I'm just going over fell out.
We could well have our first seizure on TV. That would get the viewing numbers even higher, wouldn't it? Yeah.
When you do that, when you're having a conversation with somebody that you're training, and they go through that, I've sent 9 emails. What should I write in the 10th? And you say, well, stop emailing them, you idiot. How often does somebody go, of course, I get it. I get what. And how often do they kind of look at you oddly as if to say, well, of course I'm going to email them a 10th time. It's just about getting the script right.
I might phrase it slightly differently than you idiot. But yes, you get some people who go, oh, there's another way. I didn't know. Thank you. What is it? Yeah. And you get some people confirmation bias and they go, no, emails have got to be the way. So if somebody says, I think you'll find emails got to be the way, I then have to be able to deal with that. And then it's a coaching thing. They say, well, it might be the best thing, but in my experience, if you want to find the best way to do something, find 3 or 4 options and then choose the best one. So one option is send email 10. Let's see, come up with another 2 or 3 options. And then we can choose. At the minute you're choosing from a sample size of 1, email's good, everything else bad. Let's at least open up the discussion in our minds. Yeah. And then, of course, you can say, well, why don't you go on LinkedIn, see if there's any mutual connections, go to your mutual connection and ask for a referral. Yeah. Why don't you go on LinkedIn, see if they posted? So let's say someone you're trying to target posted something last week called lockdown was better, because they suddenly realized they hate all people. So they wrote this big post saying lockdown was better. You could send them an email, said, your post lockdown was better. I've got a question about it. Well, why does anybody post anything on LinkedIn? Because they want someone to read it, right? So if you say, I've read your thing and I've got a question, everybody will open it. And then you say, I loved your article. It resonated with me because I hate people too. Do you know what? I'd love to have a quick chat with you about it and see if we think the same thing. I'll call you tomorrow. Or you could send something called meeting request, or you could cold call strangers. I mean, you can do what you want, but almost always the thing we do this week is what we did last week, even if last week didn't work.
So we've had there's a comment. Christopher Capon has basically said, Andy, can you mention battleships?
Yes. I'm not sure. I talk about battleships in different ways. Does he just want me to talk about the game, or?
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe he wants you to say, you sunk my battleship or something.
Okay, right. Okay, well, there's a couple of ways that I use battleships, so let's see how we go. So thanks for the question, Chris. So, but you all know how battleships works, right? You have A, B, C, D down the side, 1, 2, 3, 4 across the top, and then you just tick different things. So various ways that I use battleships is, let's say you want to have a customer intimacy program to get a bit closer to your customers, to add a bit more value to them. One thing you can do is down the left-hand side, you write the name of all your main customers, like Mr. 1, Mrs. 2, Master 3, Mr. 4. So you literally write the names on the left-hand side. And across the top, you write down all the things that you could do to add value. Invite them to an event, introduce them to a useful contact, send them some Lego, go and have a chat with them, blah, blah, blah. So down the side, you write all the names, and across the top, you write all the different things you could do to add value. And then, Tim, it's just like battleships. You just like tick them as you go. So I need to speak to Mr. A. What shall I do? Oh, I'll invite him to that event, and you tick that box, right? And then you can quickly see, oh, I've not done anything with Master C ever, so I need to do something. So that's one way to do it. Another way that you could use battleships is this. If you think about features and benefits, or products and benefits. So let's say you someone who sells 5 different products. So you list on the left-hand side the 5 different products, and then you put across the main benefits that you get from each of the products. Save you time, make you money, sleep at night, blah, blah, blah. And then again, Tim, same idea. You tick each of the boxes to say which product gives which benefits. Yep. Now, that's another way you can do the battleship script, because if you're talking to someone and they say, I really want product number 1, you can say, oh, why? What do you want it to do for you? And you see which column, which benefit they're interested in. If someone comes to you and they basically say, I need to free up time, where you go down the time column, that relates to products 1, 4, and 5. And so it doesn't matter whether people come from a product angle or from a benefit angle, you can have a really good sales conversation. So hopefully Christopher meant something like that. It's when you look at things from 2 different angles. And like me and Mum, I see things from a sighted point of view. She sees things from a blind point of view. So it's working out how you can link the 2.
So, Christopher, can you confirm whether that was right or wrong? Thank you.
I feel quite stressed
Now,
Ahmed makes the comment, most of the companies at the moment do not like to lose their effort to hire people and give them training. How is this working for this kind of organization?
Sorry, I always get a bit amazed that people would hire a forklift truck driver and then not give them a forklift truck or the training to drive a forklift truck, and think the worst thing we could do is make sure they were good at driving a forklift truck in case they leave one day. I don't understand that. Yes, you do see that sometimes, and people talk about the discretionary nature of training and so on. I mean, let's talk about afters that Alex mentioned before, because this is relevant. So my extremely childish, simple view of sales is this, Tim. Nobody wants what you sell. They want why they're better off after it. So nobody wants my pioneering consultancy programs, but after it, they make millions of pounds more sales. So they don't want me, they want the sales. Yeah. When you go to an attorney, you don't want the attorney, but after seeing her, hopefully you're not going to jail. So nobody wants the clever stuff in court. You just don't want jail time. So nobody wants the product. They want the afters of the product. So when you think about training your team and training your talent and training your salespeople and training your forklift drivers, if you look at it as an input, we're training people, that's not the right way to look at it. You look at the afters of it. If you train people really well, they're more likely to sell. They're more likely to feel motivated by you. They're more likely to feel invested in. They might feel a sense of reciprocity. You've helped them. They might hang around for a bit. They're more likely to hit the targets you want them to. They're more likely to be responsive, all that sort of stuff. So if you think of training as a cost and an input, there's always a reason not to do it because it goes straight in the P&L, right? But if you realize a small bit goes in the P&L cost and a huge bit goes in sales when they go up, well, that's a good thing. So I don't have much patience with, I'm not going to train my forklift truck drivers. I just think that's stupid.
I think the interesting thing about that, Andy, is we don't, as an industry, codify that. So sales is the only industry still left on the planet that basically still focuses on the number. Yes, people train, but nobody externally codifies that. So customers have got no idea of the skill set of people coming up to see them, and therefore don't necessarily see them as a forklift truck driver has qualifications, has all these various things. Salesperson in the forklift truck driver's company has zip. And he will go to every single company he goes to, we're going to train him on the same thing. Negotiation skills, maybe stakeholder management. Whereas actually the science that looks at it is the broader your set of knowledge, the greater skills you've got, the greater options for different behaviors, and therefore the greater adaptability you have. And in today's world, if you aren't adaptive as a salesperson, you're not going to make it, because customers are far more complex and the buying group is far more broad, and you've got to be able to figure out everybody's actual understanding of what's going on, so therefore you can play to each individual.
Of course, but that what you said there, Andy, and let's take the one thing I was saying before to Adam about the power of habits. What you've just said there is so right. People are in the habit of being trained on certain stuff in sales. They don't train them because, we don't want to train our people in case they get good. Idiots. Anyway, but then they're also in the habit of, when we do sales training, we do negotiation training and all that stuff you were saying, and I agree with it. But sometimes they don't train the most important thing to train. Like the best salespeople ask the best questions. So you should be trained by. So when I got passionately interested in this, I spoke to every profession I could that questions are essential to what they do. So I didn't just talk to other salespeople. Otherwise, I'm just going to copy other salespeople. I spoke to consultants and attorneys and counselors and professional coaches and sports people, like anyone where questions are essential. I mean, my mum does marriage guidance counseling. I spoke to her, what questions do you ask to draw out where there's conflict and so on. And so, but people don't think like that. They just think, right, it's sales, therefore it's negotiation training. Well, float above it, Another thing that's really important with sales is that you can pivot. So if someone seems quite interested, you need to be able to pivot to talk about your solution. So that pivot sentence is critical to selling. And if it looks like we're going, all right, you need to pivot out of the conversation into the close. So pivoting is a really important skill. Have you ever been on a sales training course called pivoting? No, of course you haven't. But nobody trains this stuff, even though it's absolutely essential. If you don't ask questions, you go in the wrong direction. If you can't pivot, you keep going in the wrong direction. And then you send a proposal they didn't ask for and wonder why you get ghosted.
I don't think you're passionate enough about this.
No, I know.
Yeah, you need to turn the dial up, Andy.
What comes when you've got like 2 pints of gin to get through in the morning. It's all good.
Look, we've got just over 15 minutes left, and we've not.
Can we do the proposal?
Yeah, exactly.
How do we get 94% proposal rate, Andy?
Okay, well, various things. The number one rule with right, so my proposal hit rate is 94%. That's what you're talking about here, right? So every time I send a proposal, 94% of it leads to sales, and it's very simple, Tim. I don't ever write a proposal till everything's been agreed verbally. That's my main thing. So if you want it in a little snappy soundbite, my proposals are a confirmation, not an exploration. So I confirm everything verbally, everything verbally, and then I put it in writing. So the proposal is really, this confirms everything we just agreed. And the reason I do that is because even if someone listening to this thinks, well, I don't think I'm very good at sales, I'll tell you this, you're better at sales than a piece of paper is. Mm-hmm. So if the first time that you're telling the customer the price, for example, is in your proposal, you're delegating the price chart to a piece of paper. All right. Well, so if someone says to me, Andy, how much is this like 12-month thing going to cost? I'll say, I don't know yet. Let me work it out and I'll give you a ring and then we'll have a chat about it. And as long as we're happy with two things, number one, the price I'm charging, and more importantly, number two, the return on investment you're going to get, as long as we're happy with both that, I'll then put it in writing. If they then say, Tim, oh, go put it in writing now, say, no, I'm not doing that. Because if I'm not happy with your return on investment, I don't want to do it, even if you do. So I need to have a chat with you. So I will not. So it's almost like every single sentence of my paragraph really could be called, as we've already said. Yeah. So if you care, my proposal, when I've agreed everything verbally, I then say to the customer two things. Number one, let's quickly agree what I'm going to write in the proposal, what the headings are going to be. So I agree with them, Tim, what do you want in there? And it's normally why it's needed, outcomes you'll get, what the program is, price and return on investment, next steps. All right, so going through them again, why it's needed, in other words, you can't do nothing. Secondly, the afters, the outcomes you're going to get when we're finished. So we're here now, we're going to be there. Section 3, this is what it's going to look like, the timeline thing, the Gantt chart, if you like fancy words. Number 4, don't call it price and return on investment. And then number 5, these are the next steps. Accept it by signing page 3. When you sign page 3, this is what I'm going to be doing, blah, blah, blah. So so I agree what the headings are going to be. And I say to them, Tim, normally my proposals are about a side and a half long. And normally I have these 5 sections. Does that feel all right to you? So I literally agree what the headings are going to be. And if they say, it's all right, I don't need that and that, just do that. Well, it's now half the side. And the second thing I agree, Tim, is I say the words, in my experience with these things, there can often be needless delay with proposals. I send it, you read it, we play telephone tennis and a week goes past. That doesn't benefit either of us. So with your agreement, I'm going to send it you today and let's schedule a call tomorrow afternoon or the day afterward. And we can so I actually will schedule the follow-up call before I send the proposal. So when you think about this, you're probably thinking, why is Andy so rubbish? He only gets 94%. Because I've agreed everything. I've agreed what's going in it. I've agreed the follow-up thing. But then, as the insurance company says, I hope it's okay to use this phrase, occasionally shit happens. Right? So that's
I was going to say, what happens with the 6% who don't agree?
Well, sometimes they have a late change of mind. Sometimes there has been... I've sent it through and they say, I'm paraphrasing here, this is exactly everything that we talked about, but I've just realized something I should have realized in our meeting. And then, for example, they say something I didn't know. Like, we recently had a few redundancies. I'm not sure, bringing in some high-priced consultants, very politically sensible at the minute. So when it gets stopped, almost always it's a surprise to both of us. They've realized something they didn't know. Yeah, but it happens. But a 94%, I mean, I'm happy with that. I'd like it to be 100, but it's better than anybody else's, I know, so I'll take that.
Yeah. I don't know if it's me, but I'm just thinking of a night with you and John Bishop as a kind of virtual stand-up, because that would be brilliant, wouldn't it?
It'd be noisy. And every now and again, Andy, I'll be saying, what do you think, John? Because I think he's hilarious.
He is, but he's also, the reason I mention it is he's obviously from Liverpool as well. I did my degree there, very fond of the city. And he was in sales, wasn't he?
He was the sales director.
Andy was a Kirby vacuum cleaner sales guy back in the day.
Wow.
I mentioned that because so was I. Whether I should admit that or not is another thing.
But it's interesting how successful you both were. Behind Andy's got some brown boxes and you've got the entire world. So there you go.
There's nothing in them. They're just empty boxes. Yeah, I buy them by the yard. They make me look really good in front of students.
It's Costco for you. It's good.
There you go.
Yeah. So before the proposal, Andy, how do you handle the? So we've had a Teams call. We've had a good chat. There's been some slides. We've presented some stuff, and then the prospect says, "Yeah, this is great. Can you send me your deck?"
Well, I mean, I don't always do a deck, but if there was a deck and they say send you the deck, I always say, why do you want it? And they might say, well, I'm going to review it afterwards. And I say, well, which bits are most useful? Because I want to edit the deck based on what we've talked about. I don't just want to send you the deck. So in effect, because before the meeting, you don't quite know what's going to come up, right? And stuff comes up in the meeting. So if you send the deck is now out of date because new stuff's come up. So I might be quite assertive, Alex, and say, well, I will send it to you, but not yet. Let me go home and make edits based on what we talked about. Anything I add, I'll put it in red writing so you don't need to read the whole thing again. Yeah. But I refer to my very first thing. I don't always use decks anyway, unless I absolutely have to. Now, here's a question for everyone listening in. Play at home for fun. How does Andy find out if the client wants him to bring a deck to a meeting? I'll give you the clue. I asked them. There you go. Stop me if this is too advanced. So when I'm having a meeting, I'll say, how do you like to do these meetings? Do you want me to bring a few slides? Would you rather we just had a chat because it's only our first time meeting? Everyone says we'll just have a chat, so I don't need to bring any slides.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Do you want a proposal? Yeah, cool. What do you want in the proposal?
Yeah. Brilliant.
I just love the simplicity of this. You know, it is beautiful the way you're describing this, and
Thank you.
you know, it's all so blindingly obvious.
Yeah,
But-
but
So we got a
not
comment
silver
here
bullet
from
there.
Mark McDermott. Warm introductions are truly great. You also have to have substance in the message, something that will resonate, or you run the risk of subversive and irrelevance.
Yeah, well done, Mark. So I violently agree with that. So if I'm asking for a referral, so let's say in the example we said before, and you're going to refer me into Alex, what I'll do is I'll say, when you're mentioning me to Alex, and then I talk about the afters I might bring for Alex. So I want to speak to Alex because I think I might be able to help him sell more. You know, this new hybrid world Alex is operating in. He used to love face-to-face, Alex. And then when lockdown happened, he used to love that. And now it's like hybrid. He's not quite so sure. I was reading something you said about it the other day. So next time you talk to Alex, maybe if you just ask him, how confident is he that he's maximizing his sales in this hybrid world he now finds himself in? If you could say that to him. So that's answering Mark's point. So I want you to go and speak to Alex, but I want you to sort of say this. So it's almost like I spoon feed you the line to spoon feed Alex. Because otherwise, if you don't mention to Alex the benefit I can bring to Alex, it sounds like you're on commission for me. And you go, and I want you to talk to Andy. Why? Because I do. Yeah, but why? Well, I really do. And there's no benefit there. But if you say, I want to speak to Alex because I think I can help Alex with this. So that's addressing Mark's point. There has to be a benefit to Alex in taking my call.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. So what? Talk to us a bit more about the evolution of your books. Why 3 books, and what's next?
Okay, so it's a funny thing that it's really weird to think of myself as an author, because I don't sort of think I am. When I've written books, but I don't think about it much. I using this afters thing, I think my job, Alex, is to be a sales increasing thing. I mean, that's my job. I'm not a consultant. I'm a sales increasing thing. So this is quite good for objection handling, because when someone says we don't have any budget for consultants, I go, I'm sure you don't. Neither do I. But you just told me you want your sales to go up. So what budget do we need that? So it's almost like when you see this, it's very good. So with the books, soon after I started, someone who I respect very much said to me, you could really do with the book. You could. Your stuff's very insightful and have a book. And I said, I'm not quite sure. And they said, but sometimes when they're hiring conference speakers, if they've got 2 fairly equal speakers, they'll go with the author. You know, it's a good. And I thought, oh, fair enough. I said, but I'm a bit busy at the minute. And he goes, but like, picture your life a year from now. Every time you get booked, you get rehired, you get loads of referrals. You're going to be more busy in a year than you are now. Go and try and write a book. So he very kindly introduced me to his publishers. I went to the publishers. And again, thinking of the magical afters, when they sat me down for lunch and said, go on, tell me about your book, I was about to say, well, I've got a pioneering new approach to sales, and I've got a blind mum, and da-da-da-da-da-da. And it suddenly dawned on me, actually, every single potential author will say to a publisher, this is my idea. Publishers don't care about your idea as much as they want to know after it, are they going to sell loads? So when they said, tell me about your book, and I said, well, I think I've got something which will sell absolutely loads because it meets an unmet need in sales. And they go, cool, what is it? You see what I mean? So you lead with the afters even when you talk to publishers. So I said, I think I've got this idea. And we talked about it and they really liked it. So then we launched Jelly Effect. That went really well. And it got like, business book of the month in bookstores, and it did well. And bloody Harry, bloody Potter, bloody beat it. But I'm not bitter about that.
No, you don't look it.
That's right. No, it's good, isn't it?
Yeah,
then,
you're over that.
That's right. Yeah. Thanks, Andy. It's good to talk to your mates. And the good thing is just the 6 of us talking. Nobody else is listening, right? So it's all good. It's just me talking to my mates. And then what happened was, after about 5 or 6 years, for some reason, I was flicking through a bit of the Jelly Effect. I don't know if you're aware of this, but when you take a photograph of yourself and you see it a few years later, you think, my word, haven't I changed? And I looked at this book, and it's almost like a photograph of my brain from 5 or 6 years ago. You very rarely know exactly what you're thinking from 5 or 6 years ago. And I thought, oh, I like that, but I would describe that slightly differently now. And then I thought, so whereas the third book came about because I needed to have one, the second book came about because I thought, if someone reads that and that's only what they read, they will not get a fair representation of what I'm like, really. So that drove the second book. And we did this launch campaign and worked very closely. And it was nuts when it was Amazon's 29th best-selling thing in the UK that day, which we thought was quite good. Like, it sort of beat the Dark Knight movie DVD when it came out. It was just really cool, very exciting, all very good. And then I thought, right, that's it for me. I'm done with books. I've written one. I've written another one because I wanted to change. And I'm now done. And then a guy called Richard Ruttle, used to work for Ernst & Young, very senior partner there, top guy, was talking to me. I'm a bit jealous of you because you've written books and I've got a good idea for a book, but I've not got a publisher. And I said, well, I've done with writing books now. Can't be bothered anymore. But I've loved it and I'm very proud of them. And he said, well, should we co-author a book? And then a year later, we had the third book. So I'm an author, but it's really weird. There was never a thing, I must be an author. It was like driven by other things. But I'm very proud of them. And I'm very proud of the effects they've had. I mean, I have emails most weeks from someone who says they've read one of them and it helped them sell more. And that's cool.
Yeah. So we've got a question here from Ahmed. I would like to ask, what is the best performance standard that can be set to evaluate the sales team?
Wow, really good. Well, ultimately, do they sell stuff is probably quite important. I wouldn't go with a particular, it depends how good they are. You can either measure inputs or outputs, right? So the obvious thing that most people do is measure outputs, like did you hit your target, did it, and so on. So if you feel they need a bit of confidence, start measuring the inputs for a bit. Did you ask for 3 referrals this week? Did you contact, before you sent the proposal, did you agree with the client what was going in there? You know, so you can measure all the sort of micro things. So it's not, as you said before about people look for a silver bullet. There isn't a silver bullet answer to this. What you have to do is you have to think, we want success here. So work backwards. What are the behaviors we want to see? And then remember that cheesy phrase, people respect what you inspect. So they respect what you inspect. So if every single week, you know, I'm going to say to you, tell me 3 names of people you ask for referrals, you'll quickly respect that. So the thing to do is think, what jump do we need the team to meet? And then you work out a measure to make sure they get there. So it's a bit of a, it depends answer, but unfortunately it does depend. It's not a silver bullet on that one.
Okay. Yeah, I like from the leadership, I was always taught, inspect what you expect. So if you're a VP, yeah, it's the other side of the coin to what you just mentioned, which is what are you going to go and inspect? Because that's what you expect as a set of behaviors. Yeah. And they'll respect it as a consequence because, yeah, it's what you are looking at. And yeah, a lot of leaders don't understand that they only have to pick 1 or 2. You can't inspect everything when you're up there.
No, absolutely. And I remember being coached many years ago, and my coach said to me, Andy, what's the future? And so, like, what do you mean? He goes, what's the future? So I don't know what you're talking about. What's the future? And I said, I know you're making a really good point. I don't know what your point is. He goes, what's the future? I don't know. He goes, what's the future? And I got really annoyed with him and said, what is your point? And he goes, you don't know the answer because nobody knows what the future is. So if you're a leader, the only way to help people see the future is, as you said then, Andy, to be really clear and keep describing it so they can see it, because the future doesn't exist in their mind. Yeah. So if you are someone who thinks your team should be getting more referrals, for example, you need to keep saying it's going to be amazing because 1 year from now, that phone's going to keep ringing, and by magic, like that phone needs to ring by magic. That's what it needs to. And so it's almost like you begin to see the phone ringing and then you work back from that. So I like this idea about, as a leader, the future doesn't exist. So the only way people can see it is if you keep on repeating, as you say, Andy, 1 or 2, and that's it. Tiny, tiny things.
And I love the way it's inputs. So one of my coaches, bless him, God rest his soul, Ed Percival, used to say, go and imagine this. And he would always look at an estate agent. He would say, what is the one thing you want if you own an estate agency? What gives you the measure of the health of your business? And it's people actually walking through the door, discussing with you, can I put my house listing with you? And he said, if that number goes up, you know the business is going to go up. And a lot of people, when I ask them in lectures and and talks, what do you measure and what is an input? They look at you a bit like a guppy fish at feeding time. It's like, what do you mean? An input? It's like, because everyone's measured on the output.
Yeah. So jumping in there, because 1 minute to go. This has been an amazing discussion, Andy. It's been brilliant having all of your just simply practical insight people can take away today and put into good use. So we do like to kind of give the audience a challenge at the end of these calls. if there's one or perhaps two things that you would challenge the audience to do or think about that is of high value that they could put into use today, what would it be?
Two things. So one of them I've already talked about, and one of them I sort of have. The one I've already talked about is change your calendar and get someone to check up on you. Right. So think of all the things that you've heard today, all the things you know you should be doing, but you don't always do, and get it in the calendar. If you're not very good at preparing, put preparation time in your calendar and ask your manager to check up with you at the end of the week. All right. If it's a manager listening, think, what do I wish my team were doing, and get them to change and you check. That's the first thing. And the second thing, which is a version of what we said before, Alex, is afters early. So afters are the most important thing, the customer's future good, like they're going to make more sales, reduce costs, whatever. And then early, first impressions drive everything. So when you send a proposal to someone who wants to export into Belgium, afters early, the proposal should be called, how will you export into Belgium? It shouldn't be called Andy Bound's proposal. Yeah. And if you set up a meeting, it shouldn't be called Andy Bound's meeting. It should be called meeting to agree the best way to export into Belgium. So do an afters early review. Look at all the types of communication you do, your meeting agendas, your meeting invitations, your proposals, slide one of your decks and ask yourself, is there an after early? Is there something sexy up front? Because if there is, they'll want to see slide 2. And if there isn't, and you say you were founded in 1922, they already hate you.
Absolutely brilliant.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you very much, Andy. Thank you guys, to the co-hosts. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and if you are around later this afternoon at 5 p.m. UK time, we have Matt Dixon joining us. Enjoy the rest of your week, folks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Thanks,